Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, we begin as always by sending our praise and thanks to Allah and sending peace and blessings upon the beloved Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we ask that Allah accepts from us. We have a very important program here today, a very important program about an extremely critical topic, and one that, quite frankly, has been ignored for far too long. And that, of course, is probably, we can say, the biggest injustice to confront the Muslim community in this country. And that, as we know, is the injustice that has been perpetrated against Imam Jamil al-Amin. And though many of us may not recognize it and may not realize it, but the Muslim community, as because of this injustice, has suffered tremendously. And perhaps the gravest injustice is that we don't even realize to what degree we have suffered this injustice. We have two extremely important guests with us who are going to be talking about this topic. I obviously will just be moderating, but first we have Brother Qari'ah Amin, who is the son of Imam Jamil al-Amin. He is an attorney. He went to Atlanta's John Marshall School of Law, and he is an attorney. And he's obviously an extremely important advocate, an activist fighting for justice for Imam Jamil al-Amin. And also we have Imam Khalid Griggs, who is ICNA's Vice President of Social Justice and Civic Engagement. And Imam Khalid is the Imam of the Community Mosque of Winston-Salem. And as we know, Imam Jamil was the Imam of the Community Mosque in Atlanta. So the two of them, Imam Khalid and Imam Jamil, have shared a very long friendship, as both of them have very similar backgrounds coming out of the civil rights and social justice movement. So, as I mentioned, this is a tremendous injustice that has been perpetrated against Imam Jamil al-Amin, and his family obviously has been deeply affected by this. And these two brothers are going to go into the details of the case, what the Muslim community needs to know, and what is the action that the Muslim community needs to take immediately. It's been nearly 20 years, but better late than never. We have to jump on this as soon as possible. But really, Brother Qari'ah, I wanted to ask you, many times when we read about this case, when we hear about this case, sometimes as human beings, we don't have a full understanding of the gravity of the situation because it becomes just names and figures and numbers. I want to ask you, how old were you when your father, dear Imam Jamil al-Amin, was taken away?
I was 12. Assalamu alaikum, first of all, but I was 12 years old during the trial. At least I was 12, so 11, 12.
And what type of an impact did this have on you as a young man? Your father's taken away.
That's even really hard to explain or put into words because I didn't have him, and so what my life would have been like or would be like today had I had him, I don't know, but I know it would have been better. It would have been better for me and my development and things of that nature. But alhamdulillah, we've been able to keep our relationship extremely strong. When he was in Georgia still, I was able to visit him relatively frequently, especially when I went to college. My college was only about 45 minutes away from where he was being housed until they moved him to the Supermax out in Colorado, at which point things became a lot more difficult. But still, to this day, we speak almost every day. So alhamdulillah, we've had that. But, any young man who loses his father at that kind of pivotal age in their development, it affects them for sure. So I'm sure I've suffered the consequences of those actions. But again, Allah is most merciful. He's been able to keep me in contact and allow me to maintain that relationship.
Alhamdulillah. And I know that you're an attorney and you're an educated man, and you can go into the details of this case, which we hope that you do go in and explain. But I think it's extremely important for us to understand the human aspect of this problem, and I think that's something that's forgotten a lot. Imam Khalid, I wanted to ask you, growing up, you and Imam Jamil both came from that generation. I guess you can say following. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, you guys came from that following generation, which I believe, we have video evidence of this. You guys were, your generation, you guys were just as charismatic, just as energetic and fearless. And I think if we go to YouTube and search H. Rap Brown, I don't think there's anyone, I think his performance was unparalleled, who he was with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And then after, he became Imam Jamil, we know the tremendous work that was done, and you were right there in that neighborhood close by in North Carolina. Can you explain what was Imam Jamil's impact on the community as a community level, and what was the level of the loss that the Muslim community suffered after he was taken away?
Assalamu alaikum to everyone. Brother Qari'ah, I'm very fortunate and very glad to be able to share a few moments with you. It's a very good question, Musab. I think that, as Qari'ah mentioned, he cannot, he really can't quantify the loss that he had and what his dad, Imam Jamil Amin, what impact that having his father physically present would have had on his life. And I think it's very similar when we look at the role that Imam Jamil played before he was Imam Jamil Amin. That oftentimes the Muslim community, I don't think we either know or we give the proper appreciation for the work that Imam Jamil, even before embracing Islam in 1971. I've had so many people to tell me in the states where Imam Jamil was very active with SNCC, and particularly in Alabama, that Imam Jamil was one of the most fearless individuals that they had ever met. I've been told even that African-American men said that they found their manhood. They found how to express their manhood in the face of conflict because of the example and the words of Imam Jamil. And so the loss for almost the last 20 years that the Muslim community has suffered is a loss that has been equally, maybe not equally, but to a certain degree suffered by the non-Muslim community as well. Because those who did not follow the pattern that Imam Jamil followed in terms of embracing Islam after his years of this tremendous activism in the Black freedom struggle, there's an appreciation, a genuine appreciation in the overall community for that work. And so the Muslim community, as I have seen it over the years, has suffered greatly from not having the kind of keen analytical ability, the kind of fearlessness. This is the kind of leadership that is so often lacking in our Muslim communities, particularly when we're faced with very traumatic or major social upheavals or social related events. And so I think one area where the Muslim community is definitely suffering is that area of not having the kind of, and this is not to denigrate any Muslim leadership anywhere at any time, but Imam Jamil's unique style of leadership, his fearlessness, his courage to say and speak a word of truth to power, and his uncompromising capacity, not compromising with evil and doom and oppression and these kinds of things. This is, in times like this, the Muslim community could definitely be greatly served, and also just in his moral authority that he brings to the table. So it's a tremendous loss that I couldn't possibly quantify all of the areas that we're suffering from. Brother Qari'ah, I want you, if you would, if you could just tell us a little bit about when did you really, I don't know if it was by the age of, when did you really understand who your dad was? Did you know it at 12 or you found out later?
I think the full understanding probably came into, during the trial and things like that, because in the household, he's just my Abi. And even when we go to conferences and things, that picture over my shoulder with me on his back, that was at a conference. He was up on stage, and like I would just walk up on stage and jump on his back, because it's like everybody else is like, that's Imam Jamil, and I'm like, oh, there's my father. Let me go do my thing. And so, as a child growing up underneath him, yeah, I understood people had a certain reverence for him and a certain respect for him when they interacted with him. But as far as who he was to the world, no, I had no idea. And it was unfortunate, really, that I had no idea, because I didn't realize who he was until I started to see his reputation be torn down, and realize that people were starting to, leave that state of reverence that they had for him based on this trial, if you want to call it that. Witch hunt is more appropriate, I believe. But yeah, no, so maybe around 12, 13, after this whole thing blew up, I started to do my own research and be more active, even as a young man, and learning who my father was. And then by the time I got to college, I was well aware that he was somebody special.
Yeah. You have been blessed in a way that many have not been blessed, in that your mom has been with your father every step of the way in his activism prior to embracing Islam, then after embracing Islam. And so you've had the blessing of having a mom who convey certain understandings and certain commitments that you should have as her son and as the Imam's son. And so could you just address that just for a few moments about the impact your mom had?
Absolutely. And even with my mom and my father, I have to reiterate to people on a regular basis that I'm not perfect. I'm still a young man going through this life thing and figuring things out for myself. So I make my mistakes, but don't attribute those to my upbringing, because they did a magnificent job. But my mom, as you said, I call her, Superwoman, because I don't know too many people who could have done what she's done, not just with me, but for herself. I've never seen her emotional. She keeps those things from me when I know that has to be a situation that she deals with internally. I've never seen it. She's been a rock for me. She's been there every step of the way. When I do make mistakes, she's there to bail me out, time and time again. So, she's made this possible for me to navigate. Without her, I don't know what would have happened. I don't know how or where I would be, but she's definitely been able to continue to be a guiding light for me. And again, along with my father, he's been there every step of the way as well, in the capacity that he's able to be at this point. So yeah, no, without mom, I wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation, more than likely.
Right. Yeah, that's good. And I think oftentimes we can overlook the role and importance of our sisters, even when you have iconic figures like Imam Jamil as a husband and as a dad. But we, in so many situations like in yours, the sisters are playing such a tremendous role. And your mom I know has played such a tremendous, not just support role, but in helping to amplify over the years your dad's case. And I'll say this in public to try to nudge you even further than what you're already committed to do. But I just pray that you will pick up this mantle and continue and see this all the way through to the end. I mean, you're doing that, but I think that it's essential for the rest of us that, we've seen your mom out there and struggling with this for so many years. And I just want to just encourage that you continue to do as you're doing now, because I think it's essential for, others coming in and mobilizing and this kind of thing. Let me ask you another question here. The involvements, the leadership that the Imam has provided, that you've been able to witness that leadership, particularly in the Muslim community. what do you see? What void have you been able, from your vantage point, what void have you been able to see has come about as a result of your dad not being physically present?
I think the idea, the understanding of the importance of physical community, the actual closeness of community, you know, with technology. When he was out, last time he was out, technology was nowhere near where it is today. And so
Right.
if you wanted to communicate, if you wanted to feel that closeness, or like that you were able to check in on your brother or your sister, you had to live somewhere in the vicinity.
Right.
Now it's not really a thing. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have FaceTime. We can do, but the closeness of community, the physical nature of community, he understood that more, I think, better than most. But he also understood the value and necessity of having a bridge between youth and the elders. Because if there's no bridge there, eventually there will be a gap, a void, as you say, because the youth has been alienated, and the elders feel the youth are disrespectful. So the youth tend to go off and do their own thing. And so those two things compounded upon each other have produced what we have today. We have a youth who feels that they're not necessarily wanted or appreciated in their community. And they also feel like they don't have to physically be there to stay in contact.
Right.
And so those two things were his guiding principle. You know, he built his communities around masjids because he said, you know, Fajr and Isha is hardest upon the hypocrites. And so those were his guidelines. If you want to be a part of what we have established, you make Fajr and Isha. And in order to do that, you make it easy on yourself. You live around the masjid. And so those were the principles that I think have since left. You know, the youth doesn't feel a connection to the leadership anymore, and there is no physical community. There might be 2 or 3 families that live around the masjid when it used to be every house.
Right.
Every house. So
yeah, that's an excellent point. You know, just to remind myself and remind others, there is a narration of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in which the Prophet said that the best before Islam will be the best in Islam once they understand the deen. And when I reflect on the life of your dad and the work that he did, the truthful, honest, non-hypocritical work that your father did, I'm reminded of that particular hadith. He was who he was before Islam, and it just became a better version of who he was after he embraced Islam. Now, let's sort of shift just a little bit, because I think a number of folks who are listening or watching this discussion don't really know a lot about the details of the case. And I want to start by just asking you a question as in your professional capacity as a lawyer. And then I want you to talk a little bit about this, the case itself. But in your professional opinion, because, you know, just as a layman, I've never heard of any political prisoner who, and this is how I view Imam Jamil, I've never heard of any political prisoner having almost like a lifetime gag order on them. So even after this bogus conviction, he's still not able to publicly speak about the situation. Is this something that's common? Have I been asleep and just missed it? So what's going on with this?
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. Even Mumia has a whole radio show.
Radio show.
What are we doing? You know, no, they understand. You know, they understand the power of his words. You know, to move people to whatever action. You know, that's the reason why he's in federal custody at this moment. It's because, you know, they put the leader of the Aryan nation in a cell next to him, and they got to talking, and he took shahada. So,
that's right.
you know, after that, they were like, okay, federal custody, solitary, we don't have time for this, and we can't let you speak to anybody. But they knew that, you know, all the way back in the trial. So the current gag order is an unofficial gag order. Basically, it's just if you request an interview, they're going to say no.
No. Okay.
You know, so that's just, but it's not technically on paper. So that's why we can't really do anything legally about it, because they'll say, oh no, he's not gagged, tell them to submit a request. But
Yeah.
they've been submitting requests for 20 years and he hasn't done an interview. He might have gotten one or two off on the telephone call type situation, but not the official interview that's necessary. And again, it's because they know who he is. They know who they have and why they have him, which is the most important piece of this. This isn't about this murder that happened and that we all know we all know at least he didn't commit. We've known it for quite some time, but we're convincing people again. It wasn't about that. It was about his influence. It was about his influence and what he's capable of when he's on the street.
Yeah. Before you get into the case, let me just say ask about one other quick thing and just make a comment. That is that for our younger viewers who may not know the capacity to eloquate, to the spoken word capacity, the wordsmithmanship, if there's such a word, that many of particularly the younger folks, may not realize the influence that the Imam had prior to embracing Islam and having just a formal minbar, a formal pulpit to speak from. As a matter of fact, in one of the conversations that I had with your dad, and I think it was in Waymart, Pennsylvania, in Canaan somewhere, we talked for a while about his influence over the early rap, not rap is in his name, but just the rap community. Do you know anything about that? Can you address that at all?
Yeah, he always wants me to kind of get the record straight, and he wants me to make sure I reach out to Chuck, so Chuck D is from Public Enemy can help him set the record straight. But rap, the actual art form, that is named after him. The thing that we like and love so much today, that's named after him, and style of oration that he used to use, and then now it's hip hop and it's gone on to be something much. But there's no rap, not the name of the music, nothing without A-Trap Brown, Imam, Jamil. But the bigger picture I'd like the young people to understand is that he's really that guy, whether you're talking about pop culture or when we finally get the opportunity to present, this mini series, inshallah, a documentary on who A-Trap Brown and Imam Jamil is, you're going to react to him in the same ways you react to the Malcolm X document or that Malcolm X biopic or, American Gangster, except he never snitched on anybody at the end. Like, he's really that guy. You're going to be like, oh, wow, he's that guy. And it's like, yeah, he is. And it's just unfortunate that we allowed the government to pull the wool over our eyes one more time and take another hero and turn him into a villain that we villainize. They don't even talk about him in that way anymore. We do it. We do it. And so now it's time to kind of scrub that clean and get him back to, the position of reverence that he deserves to be in, because he's done so much for us at this point as a ummah and as Black people. Sure.
Let me, I keep saying this, we're going to get into the trial, and we have a little time. We're going to get into the trial. I just want to mention this too, about the influence Imam Jamil has had over young folks, and not just with rap. I can remember, I can't remember if it was maybe 1995, a major national gang truce had been crafted. And your dad invited me, I think, and my memory is failing a little bit, but your dad invited me to come to a gang summit in which he was going to participate. I think it was in Kansas City, Missouri, if I remember correctly.
I believe so.
Yeah. And so I went to this summit, and I honestly was just fascinated by how all of these, what we would call gangbangers, the kind of respect shown to the Imam and the kind of reverence that they show to the Imam. And I remember this particular session, one of the sessions was on Jummah, on Friday. And so they said, okay, they made the announcement, okay, well, we're going to have this break for the Muslims to conduct their service. And Imam Jamil is going to be the one who's giving the khutbah. He's going to deliver the message for the day. So I thought, and probably all of us thought, that these guys are just going to get up and walk out. You could count on one hand the number of these so-called gangbangers who didn't stay quietly in all deferential posture to listen to your dad. And, you know, so it was inspiring to me to see that. It's not just a certain level of people or certain, that the sincerity comes through and has come through with him and all the time. So let's get into the case now.
And just to touch on that before we get into the case,
sure.
And that's one I've experienced that throughout the 12 years when I had him on the street, and that's one of the reasons why now when I see people who are closest to him turn their back on him, it hurts a certain amount, because it's like I know if he were here, that wouldn't be the case. I know what he meant to you. I know what he did for you, and for you to say, you know, later for that, it hurts me as his son. And so, you know, I've seen a lot of that. I'm seeing some of that still, but you know, again, my IB always used to say, truth smashes the brains out of falsehood. And now we got the truth and we have ways to present it. So, you know, any questions that folks have, we have the answers for them. We've been telling people that a guy confessed for 20 years, and then alhamdulillah, Allah provided us with a video of the guy confessing. So,
and then what made it so bizarre, I mean, he's confessing, as you said, in a different case, and the dude is on some kind of court television program. And this is how it comes to the just general public. Now, we're talking about anything else. Let's talk about the trial a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What's your take on this fiasco of a trial?
Even as a young person, I knew something wasn't right. It just didn't feel right. But as an adult who has now, you know, passed the bar and I understand the law, it was a travesty. It was ridiculous. And we shouldn't have allowed it. You know, I think the adults at the time understood, like, this ain't right. This can't be right. Like, we've had enough in our community interactions with the legal system where we understand, you know, we don't like the legal system, but we can definitely tell when they're cheating. Like, and that's what they did throughout the trial. They cheated time and time again. And when I say cheated, I mean cheated. From faulty ballistics, the lady who did the ballistics in our trial, who was, you know, hired by the state, she was fired from her job because she did faulty ballistics, and all of the, you know, cases, and most of the cases that she did the ballistics for. So the ballistics don't match. The description matches the guy who confessed, and you know, that's 5'9", 5'10", light skin, gray eyes, small fellow. And my father's 6'5", 6'6", brown eyes, and usually wears sunglasses. You know, they said the man who shot these police officers was wounded. The guy who confessed was wounded. My father wasn't wounded. And so then all of a sudden the blood from that was found on the scene, they couldn't find a match because it didn't match the Imam. You know? So, you know, all the way to the constitutional violation. They violated his constitutional rights a few times, but the most prominent one was they did a mock cross-examination where they asked him questions in the closing argument and then answered the questions for him to the jury after he exercised his right not to testify, because we believe that they didn't present a strong enough case that warranted him to have to testify. We proved that he didn't do it. But when you allow that to be the last thing that lay people on the jury hear, it changes the game a little bit. We had an FBI agent involved who planted evidence in our case, and we proved that he planted the exact same kind of evidence in a prior case against another African-American Muslim, but that one, he shot him in the back of the head first. So, you know, he lied on stand about being alone during the search and was caught lying on stand. So that's perjury in a murder trial. It's just so many things that happened in this one trial that we've been trying to tell people, like, no, really, he didn't do it. Look, we can show you. But again, the most pervasive thing in all of this is that since before day one of the trial, the guy who did it said, I did it. You know, so that's what we're hinging our case on right now, especially with the conviction integrity unit. I mean, we have all these other things listed out and we want them to review that as well. But it's like, hey, look, this guy, Otis Jackson, he's sitting in prison in Florida. He's telling you he did it. He's been telling you he did it. We have three affidavits from him. We have him on video. We have handwritten like every kind of confession you can possibly get from a guy, he gave us.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do y'all want? Like, if nothing else, we deserve a new trial, but realistically, let the Imam go. Like, let him go.
Yeah, yeah. You know, that's a good capsule. You know, I'm sure you are familiar with, and I think this was in, and you can correct me on the dates. Was this also 1995 when the Imam was, I don't know if he was formally charged, but it was said that he was sitting in this store, and this guy was walking past the store, and he shot the guy in the leg with a rifle. I mean, that was
ridiculous.
It was so absurd. And is it true that the guy who was pushed and threatened to make the accusation, is it true that he actually embraced Islam?
Yeah, yeah. It usually is the case with people who lived in the West End for long enough that tends to happen.
That's right.
But yeah, he did. He did.
That's right.
But this is like, as you said, this has been a thing. You know, they've been trying whatever they can pin on Imam Jamil, right, just because of who he is. You know, as a Muslim cleric and leader in the West End community, he's responsible for the cleanup, not the fitna. That's not his thing.
Right. That's right.
And it never was. And alhamdulillah, his reputation preceded him, and so fitna didn't look for him either.
Right.
So
right.
alhamdulillah for that. So yeah, it's just. It was disheartening for a while trying to get people to remember who the Imam was. Like, look, this isn't even in line with the man we know and love and have this respect for. If nothing else, he's told you he didn't do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That should have been good enough for a lot of people who it wasn't good enough for. But now it's like, okay, we'll prove it. We'll prove it. And I think we've done a good job in the court of public opinion, which is why we've been able to get to where we are in the actual legal justice system this time around. Because of that gag order, we've had an issue fighting in the court of public opinion, and we, you know, a lot of our efforts have been unsuccessful because he can't speak. And so when he asked me to kind of step forward and take a more active role in his release efforts, that was my goal, was just to get the message out in a way that's palatable for people in 2020. And I think we've done that, and we're going to continue to do that. Our petition, you know, we've gotten 45,000 signatures or so. I think the last petition we did, we got 1,000 signatures. And so we're doing great. We're doing great. But that petition, every signature automatically emails the district attorney's office. And so that's the importance of we're trying to get that number to 100,000 because they need to understand that people do still care. They have the evidence, they have the confession, they have all of that. But if we can't show them that people care, we're dealing with politicians. The district attorney is a lawyer, but he's a politician in the middle of a runoff right now, as a matter of fact. And so, you know, his position is, why should I do this? Yeah, okay. It's bad, or okay, somebody confessed, but this was never about that. What benefit do I get for doing this? And so those signatures help more than you know. A lot of people, when they call me, they'll have all these new ideas of how it's like, listen, I know you don't understand the signatures, but they really matter. They really matter.
They absolutely do. You know, and I want to recognize the hard work that so many folks have continuously done on behalf of your dad. Not anything close to what we should have been doing all along. But I know you have support groups like Imam Jamil Action Network and others who are tirelessly putting in the time and the work. And oftentimes, just like the case and the unofficial gag order on Imam Jamil himself, sometimes the quiet work, the good work that's done on behalf of the Imam and the support work goes unnoticed, except for those who are directly impacted, who are signing a petition or doing some of these other things. And so, you know, I just wanted to recognize, without calling any specific names, because people will get angry with me if we don't mention certain folks, but there are a number of folks out there who love your dad. They are so appreciative, like myself, so appreciative for the work that he's done on behalf of the community here. There are still some Muslims who are maybe they don't realize the role that they're actually playing. It may be unbeknownst to them, but there's still some Muslims who raise certain issues to, sometimes I say, to justify their own inactivity or justify maybe being afraid to be associated with something. But could you address this idea that I've heard and have had to try to beat back on multiple occasions, that if the Imam, and this comes from, I feel, from people who don't really understand the social dynamics of America, but if the Imam were innocent, why did he flee? Why did he go to Alabama? Why did law enforcement have to catch him in Alabama if he were not guilty of anything? Why did he flee?
Well, the short answer is because he knew they'd be chasing him. This not a new, this wasn't his first rodeo, so to speak. Right. He's been a social justice warrior and or whatever you want to call him, civil rights actor, whatever you want to call him, for 60 years. So he understands what a setup looks like. These things it's not hard to see. I would have run too. That's why I have a record. I tell him, like, people ask me, why did he take you and your mom? What, are you serious? Why would you do that? That's a terrible idea. Right. Like, right. leave us in safety while you go and try to figure out exactly what's going on. I can't only imagine the level of disorientation that must be going on, because he didn't say he wasn't present at all. He said he fled when the gunshot started. Right, exactly. Like anybody would do. Exactly. And so if you flee when the gunshots start, and then you hear on the radio that they're looking for you, and your relationship with the government, and the FBI is on the scene before the local police show up, this ain't normal. I gotta go. That ain't normal. Yeah, that ain't normal. I gotta go. Something's not right. Right. And then when you do finally get caught, for the local police officers to tell you, please don't move, they intend to kill you. Then, that's why he ran, because they intended to catch and kill him. This wasn't they don't usually lock up people like my father, Malcolm, Martin. They don't make it to prison. That's not the goal. So that's why, when we talk about things like compassionate release for Imam Jamil, that's not going to happen. We have to prove him innocent. And we've done that. And we have to let them know that we are in support of his release because we think he's innocent, not because he's old, not because we love him, not because he's sick. No, because he didn't do it. Because any of those other reasons, they don't have compassion for Imam Jamil. They have hatred for Imam Jamil. That's why he's in this situation. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I'm going to share something that I never said publicly before. But right before Imam Jamil was caught down in Whitehall, I got a call from one of the dear brothers who's very close to him and organization and part of the Ummah organization. And he called me and said that Imam is going to turn himself in. But what he wants is to have some imams present when he turns himself in, because he's afraid that if he does this by himself or just with an attorney, he may end up dead. They may try to shoot him. They may try to do anything. So he wanted to establish a public place where, and he mentioned the names of some other folks that he was talking to, and that would be an 8-hour window, and I'll call you back. This is before cell phones, or before I had a cell phone anyway. I'll call you back, and you come to the spot and publicly return in. And with all of the, wiretaps and all this other kind of stuff that was going on, this was literally one day. This call was one day before the events that happened in, where he was apprehended in Whitehall. And so
even on that part of it, I mean, you mentioned about his concern, legitimate concern about what could happen up front if he just goes into pulls up into a situation where folks are shooting and law enforcement and the FBI is already there. But even after that, it was coming to me that he's concerned that
they were planning on killing him.
They're gonna kill him.
That's what it was.
Yeah, and just we need some other people around, and yeah, I mean, so it's been horrendous what the Imam has gone through. But what we need to look at, all of us, is even more horrendous that the Imam would be concerned about his life in something like this, and especially a process that was used over not showing up for a so-called traffic violation, and all this unfolds, you know. So I think if there's ever a time for us to stop with the nonsense in terms of trying to figure out, you know, I'm not saying we should stop thinking, but I think now is the time, an opportune moment to get the freedom for Imam Jamil, and for us to stop the nonsense of trying to, you know, draw, I forgot what the expression is, but we're just grasping at the air to try to come up with reasons why we don't want to, or we don't feel we're in a position to support the Imam. I think we need to put all of that nonsense down at this juncture and to actually do whatever we possibly can do. Now, let me ask you this: what would you suggest? You know, and there's some things in motion already, but from the Muslim community in particular, are there any specific suggestions as to what could, you know, what should the Muslim community be doing at this moment?
Well, it's a few things. You know, we're always going to start with the petition. If you haven't signed and shared the petition, please sign and share the petition. But those that know have to discuss it. Like, it needs to be a topic of discussion. One of the things I've left, I haven't told anybody this, but I've left a few solidarity groups, you know, based around how the Muslim community is now rallying around the African-American plight in this country. But, you know,
right,
we've had Imam Jamil asking for these same organizations and people to assist him in his plight as an African-American and a Muslim in this country. And he couldn't buy help, you know. And so we have to talk about, it has to be this is our Black social justice issue, as you put it earlier. Like, this is, or as the brother put it earlier, this is the biggest social justice issue that African-American Muslims have to deal with. There is not a bigger one than this. And so if we are serious about Black Lives Matter or whatever else you want to call it, this is ours. This is our thing. This is the thing that we need on the bill, so to speak, when we're discussing it. And we're also getting ready. I've actually been able to get a statement recorded from the Imam, and we're launching a fund finally. We've held off from launching a fund this entire time because we've been spending our own money just trying to make sure that we built up awareness. But if we're going to play in politics, which is what this is going to take in order for us to take these last few steps to his freedom, which we are really optimistic about. We've had the conversations. We understand that they're willing to do it. But we have to play in politics now. And the only way to do that is with some finances. And so we will be starting a fund, inshallah, via Launch Good soon. And we'll be releasing that statement from the Imam, just showing his gratitude and letting you know that he's all right, and that he's still hanging in there looking for his freedom because he wants to come home. He feels like there's still work for him to do, even though he's been doing it, you know. So, you know, inshallah, those are the things, you know, the petition, talk about it, make it a priority in your daily conversations, whether it's your social justice conversations or just your regular conversations. We have a website available. You can go to freeimamjamil.com, and all of the information for current things as far as his trial and everything like that are there. Links to the petition are there. Videos are there. Send people to it. Get them engaged. This is a big deal. This is a big deal.
Let me, can you talk a little bit about the Imam's health? I know that he's facing and has been facing some health challenges. Could you Give us
Sure.
a kind of date about that.
Well, he's up in age, so he's dealing with a lot of the normal older age health issues, but he does have some more serious things going on. He had a bout with cancer that he fought, and it seems as though he won it for now. You know how cancer works; you never really know what's happening. But for the time being, he's okay. He has cataracts, and so he's essentially blind right now, and that's the issue that we're dealing with within the justice system. We're trying to get them to expedite his cataract surgery because he's been on this list for 2 years now, and it doesn't seem like he's moving up the list at all. And so those are the two major issues. And now he's on lockdown for the next 2 weeks. The entire prison is on lockdown for the next 2 weeks because some COVID cases have popped up in Tucson. And so they're trying to keep that contained. But it's crazy because I know that they're trying to figure out how he's still living, but he seems just as strong as ever. His mental faculties are, he's the same Imam. He's the same Imam. So Allah is blessing him in those ways. And we feel, whenever I speak with him, our conversations are, look, we feel like this is the one. This is the time. This is the opportunity. So, you know, we want him to finish out on this side of the wall and not on that side of the wall. So inshallah, we're right there.
Yeah. Are there any things that we can do to help facilitate this cataract surgery? I mean, can we write letters or call, or I mean, can anything be done? Because
it's sure, but it's like, because of the state of the world right now, I don't even know who's in the office to get those letters, or you know, if they're just, you know, I don't know what that'll do. You know, we could call, but they're not answering my phone calls when I'm trying to set up legal calls. So they're probably not answering anybody else's either. It's just, it's really a weird, it used to be a time where, you know, maybe badgering and harassing them would get them to move along. But it's like, I don't even think there's anybody in the office to really badger and harass. The thing that we're trying to get done, especially because we're fighting his situation here in the state, is get him moved back to Georgia, because that'll solve all these issues. That would solve all of these issues. But again, the people who can pull that off for us are also politicians, and they're once again asking, well, okay, sure, what can you do for me? And now that we understand that, alhamdulillah, we know how to play the game, so we're going to play the game. But moving him back to Georgia seems to be the only way to deal with his health adequately, and it would allow his attorneys to continue to fight more diligently and be able to link with him more frequently to come up with strategy and how we move forward. But inshallah, either that happens or we get him home. We really think that with the strategy we're using and proper funding for this project, we could get him home in 6 to 12 months.
Oh, subhanAllah, that would be wonderful. Could you explain to everyone, because this has been a question that a number of people have had, on a state conviction, what justification was used for the Imam to be put into the federal system, and then without any infractions while he was in Reidsville in Georgia, then sent to a supermax? I mean, what justification? I mean, whatever it is to me is not a justification, but what was said by way of explaining how he ended up in the supermax in Florence, Colorado?
Well, the justification is twofold. The first part of the justification is that Georgia actually has a relationship with the federal government that says if they have a prisoner that's too high profile, or that they feel they can't adequately house, then they can turn them over to the federal government. And I think the number is something like $300,000 a year in state taxpayers' money goes to the federal government so that they can house him. So we're paying for this as well, just in case anybody was confused. But that's the arrangement that they have. And so once he was put into the federal government's hands, the federal government says we can put him in any one of our prisons that we want to put him in. You know, he doesn't fall in line with any of our actual rules as far as how we treat federal prisoners, because he's not a federal prisoner. And so because there's a vendetta against him, of course, you put him in the worst prison ever in the Supermax. And so whenever we would ask them for the longest time to move him out of the Supermax, they would tell us the only place we're willing to send him is back to Georgia. And the only way we'll do that is if Georgia asks for him. And Georgia says, we're not asking for him. So that has been the song and dance we've played with Georgia and the federal government for the last, 13, 14 years or so of his federal. Now that's the time he spent in federal incarceration. So the only reason he got out of the Supermax was because the cancer came about, and we were able to reach out to the Black Caucus, the congressmen, that's the Black Caucus, Benny Thompson and them. They reached out to Obama's, what's the word I'm looking for? Not organized. What do they call it when you have hold on, I'm gonna get it. They reached out to Obama and the other constituents working with him, and they were able, Eric Holder and those folks, they were able to have him move to Butner to get proper medical treatment. And from there, Butner very quickly after they felt like they stabilized him, they said, "That's it, we're done. Where else can we send him?" And they didn't, alhamdulillah, send him back to the Supermax because we were ready to file lawsuits for that. So they sent him out to Tucson, Arizona, where he has been ever since.
Yeah, I know he was in and out of Butner so quickly that they couldn't process my paperwork in enough time for me to see him. He's right here in North Carolina, and he was gone before the paperwork.
Well, I actually traveled to North Carolina to see him, and once I got there, they told me I couldn't visit him. They were like, "Nah, sorry, not gonna happen." And so they sent me on my way. After approval, they told me I could come and everything, but once I got there, they were like, "No, never mind." But what happened was word got out in Butner that he was there.
Yeah.
And once that happens, it's like, "Oh, we want to see him." And so they were like, "Nope, get him out of here." Get him out of here.
We only have about 8 minutes time left, the allotted time. So if there are any questions that have come through, Musab can, I see Musab is trying to get back in here. So we have a number of questions, and I'd like to give the audience a chance to address some of the questions.
Inshallah.
Brother Qari, one of the questions that came through was, you mentioned that regarding this petition, that it goes to the district attorney, and you mentioned that the district attorney is in the middle of a runoff election. I don't like to play hypotheticals here, but if we were in a position that we could have mobilized and prioritized this as an issue, couldn't this have been served as, if we had more people who were behind this, couldn't this have served as one of the cards that we play? Look, if you want our votes, this is something that you got to do for us.
It is a card that we do intend to play this go round. What happened was I gotta be careful here. We intend to play that card now that he's in a situation where he's running, where he has to do this runoff. The election is in August. The actual where he runs against them, it's in August, and we definitely intend to leverage it this time around. It was a conscious decision not to do it the first time around. That's the best I can do on that part. But we do intend to. We're playing politics this time for sure. The problem is it's a very local election. So it's Fulton County. It's not even at all of Atlanta. And so that's the people we have to galvanize for him. But that's doable. We are very confident in our abilities to do that. And we're working on setting up a meeting to sit down very soon with his people so that they can understand, listen, we can win this for you.
So in addition to, and because this is a national webinar, we may even have listeners from other countries, but we have a number of people who are watching this and following this from all over the country saying, okay, well, if I don't live in that county, what can I do? Can I somehow, contact that DA, send them an email or anything like that?
Absolutely. The Fulton County District Attorney's Office is, I don't have their web address right now in front of me, but if you Google Fulton County District Attorney, his website pops up, and you just click the contact button, and you can send them as many emails as you want. That's definitely beneficial. That goes right along with the rest of the emails they're getting from these from the petition signatures and all of that. So yes, definitely find ways to let them know, even though you're not local, that you're paying attention, because I'm sure he has aspirations outside of Fulton County DA, even though he's been one for a long, long time. Politicians usually want to move up the political ladder. So, you know, remembering his name for future aspirations definitely will ring a bell for a politician.
In the recent weeks and months, we've seen, Imam Khalid, you've been mentioning so many times that this is a time in your lifetime that you've never seen change like this. And primarily because of the COVID situation, there's a lot of what we used to make fun of and call clicktivism, but we're seeing that it's actually doing things. We're seeing companies make changes. We're seeing even the government, local governments, making changes based on public demand. So this is a question to both of you that, you know, we need to, first of all, engage more than just it on an individual level. We need to definitely make this a priority on an organizational level as ICNA, as the ICNA Council for Social Justice, and use all the different Muslim organizations that, quite frankly, have benefited from the contributions of Imam Jamil Amin and the people around him. So Imam Khalid, I'll ask you and Brother Qari'ah afterwards, if you could also contribute, what can we as organizations do right now? What should we be prioritizing to make a change in this on this particular situation?
Yeah, you know, that's a good question. You know, just a very quick comment about what we are seeing these corporations doing. I mean, you want to order something from Amazon or from Walmart and folks like that. It's amazing to me how the social needle has shifted into another direction. And a lot of these corporations, it's good to see when you click on Amazon, we support Black lives and all like this, and same thing with Walmart. But if they support Black lives and they're serious about this, they'll do more than just putting a banner on a website or putting something in their store talking about we support Black people, we love y'all. Okay, what they love is, in my humble opinion, and I'm not trying to be stereotypical or generalize about everybody, what they love are our Black dollars.
Absolutely.
The money that comes into their coffers. And they found ways to systematically deny a living wage of their workers, with such a high percentage of their workers in these stores who have been classified as essential workers. They love these people now, right? We love Black lives. Okay, well, show us how much you love Black lives by paying living wages, by and so many other kinds of things. So I think that the Muslim community and the Muslim organizations, I think that this is an opportunity for us to educate ourselves and as we're educating ourselves, to educate others. It's not just a matter of throwing money at a problem. This is not a throw money at an issue situation. I mean, money is needed. And I would be the last person to say, well, don't send money. No, money is definitely needed. But we talk about systemic change. Let's start with ourselves. Let's make systemic changes in the way that we are dealing with and navigating our organizations through these social crises. As just a quick example, and I shut up. If we had the consciousness and the level of sensitivity, not just to Imam Jamil Abdullah Al-Amin and his specific case, but as Muslims, if these organizations and individuals had the consciousness that we should bring to the table as Muslims, Imam Jamil, in my humble opinion, would not be in the situation that he's in right now. I honestly believe that. It's Allah's qadr. I'm not trying to deny Allah's decree. We all have a responsibility. This is the moment. If we, there's a saying, it may be across the country, Kyrie, but I know it is down here in the South. it's time to urinate or get off the pot, right? This is the moment in the history of this nation that the words alone are not sufficient. We don't want to hear, I don't want to hear myself talking and not trying to make some changes to impact the situation. So I think there's internal changes that we have to make. Give the money, it's always needed and necessary, but support those projects and support the people that so much of the world's attention is focused on right now.
I mean, yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And I think that also the organizations can use their resources. You know, I see not necessarily advertisements, but I see posts that are curated when they want to get, you know, their point across, or when they want to support an ideal or a cause or whatever. I see it. So I know that they have these capabilities. But with us, it seems like they just ask what they can do and then share what I've posted already. It's like, no, we need branded content from these organizations so that the people who support these organizations understand that this is something you support. And so we need real support. And I think that is, I think that sums it up from my perspective. You know, a lot of people, and I'm not going to apologize, but a lot of people say that well, not a lot of people. Some people say, oh, well, you come off kind of strong. Well, it's like, I've been dealing with this for 20 years. Frustration is real. It's there. It's a real thing. This is my father. This is my Imam. This is someone who I believe has been innocent for 20 years. And I believe that the support hasn't been there in the way that it should have been there. I'm 100% firm in that stance, and it's not going to change. And so if some of the things I have said have rubbed you the wrong way, then I might have been talking to you, and I'm sorry that it touched you the way it did, but inshallah it stirs you to action, because action is what he needs. You know, this is when we discuss this situation, you know, what hurts and bothers us the most is that he's on the front lines for everyone. And so there is no neutrality. There is no, we'll see. There is no, I love the Imam, but he, you know, maybe he did. No, none of that's acceptable. He needs you to have a firm stance for him as he would wear the shoe on the other foot. And so that's my message to the organizations and to individuals. Show him that you love him the way you will if you see him again, inshallah.
We've just crossed the hour mark, but there's a few more things, just a couple more things, Brother Qari'ah, we wanted to ask. And again, this is because these were some of the comments that were coming in. You mentioned briefly that there might be a docuseries or a documentary in the works. And
well, the documentary, we had an issue with the documentary, believe it or not. We raised money for the documentary, and then it put the money into the current campaign that we're pushing because, one, we didn't raise enough money for the documentary, and two, the issue that we were running into was people would give us their word that they were willing to do the documentary, and then I'm assuming they spoke with someone and we would get a call back like, you know what, I really can't do that. Never mind. And so instead of doing a documentary, we've actually been writing a mini series so that we could tell the story however we feel like telling the story. And because that's what they've been doing as well. So we're going to shoot a dramatized mini series, almost like the When They See Us for the Central Park 5 situation. We've written the pilot. Well, almost finished writing the pilot. We have the director, we have the shooter, the videographer who'll be shooting for us and everything. So that's a project that we're really excited about moving forward with, and we think that it's going to again do great things for bringing back the reverence that we believe people should have for him. Because again, he's that guy. Like he really is. The rappers that you love, they love him. They ain't saying nothing because they have things to lose, and we understand that. But they love him. They know exactly who he is. You know, the actors that you know and love, they love him. Like he's really that guy. And so we need people to understand that because it's easier to drum up support. You know, it's crazy. And I don't mean this in a way that, you know, to diminish or raise any one person over another, but it's crazy that a situation like George Floyd can get 500,000 signatures in a day. And we've been at this for 4 months and we're at 45,000. Like, it's crazy. That's crazy. He's our guy. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And rest in peace to George Floyd, you know, and all the others who've been affected by this. We are going to get that systemic change that we're looking for. But that's not what I'm discussing. I'm discussing the person versus the person. It's like he's done things for so many people like that you directly benefited from. How is it this difficult to put your name on that signature? You know, that's what we need. We need real support. Again, that's no more fake support. We've had a lot of that. It's really, it's itchy. Let's get real support.
No doubt that I mean, we pray and that this uh, television series or this mini series that you guys are working on, we pray that this is fruitful and this is successful. I remember Imam Khalid Briggs, as long as I've been listening to you, it's probably been like 20 years now, from way back in the early 2000s all the way till the last time that you were in Texas. I can't remember a single time where you spoke and you didn't mention Malcolm X and Imam Jamil in the same breath. So no doubt we know that he is the man, and I mean we're hoping that as the tide begins to turn and this next generation of Muslims who are born in this country and more brothers who are embracing Islam, we're seeing a lot more passion and enthusiasm on this particular case. But I feel that we as an organization and at all the Muslim organizations, we really need to jump on this. Before I ask both of you for final words to conclude this program, Brother Kyrie, I wanted to ask you one more time if you can share where we can go to find the website, how we can contribute our dollars to this campaign, where we can go to stay up to date, and also we'll remain in contact with you so that we can get that information and also post it on our ICNA social media also. But if you could please share with us and then go ahead and give us some final words.
Absolutely. Freeimamjamil.com will redirect you to the informational site that I've created. I see that people are having issues with the IJAN website. It's actually now Imam Jamil Action Network .weebly, WEEBLY.com. So I'm not sure when that changed, but it has changed. That's how you get to IJAN. And as far as donating goes, we have not launched that fund yet. We're in the process of setting it up and getting things prepared for that. But if you sign the petition, it will go out as an update on the petition and you'll get it in your email. Plus, I promise if you follow me anywhere, or even if you don't, if you've ever seen me anywhere, you're going to see the fundraiser when it comes out. I'm going to make sure of it, inshallah. So give me about a week on that, and that should go live. And then we should be able to start updating you as well on how we're moving as far as, you know, the election that's coming up in August, because again, that is on our agenda, and we have to start moving really fast because August will be here in 4 weeks. So inshallah, we'll be prepared.
You want to share some closing remarks, Brother Kyrie?
I feel like we've done a really good job, actually, believe it or not. But in closing, you know, one, I just want to say shukran, you know, to Imam Khalid Griggs, as always. He's always, you know, that's my guy. I love Imam Khalid. I know he's seen some of my rants and ravings online. It's not at you, Imam, I promise. I promise. But you know, I appreciate the opportunity to do this. And inshallah, it's fruitful. This is fruitful. You know, again, we're very, very optimistic. We're pleased with what we've been able to do thus far. And we think 6 to 12 months is a real doable goal for the Imam's release. Make dua, keep that specific dua in your dua, make it sincerely. And inshallah, Allah will lend his assistance, because without that, there is no success. And outside of that, you know, the petition. Sign the petition for me. Pass the petition along. Non-Muslim friends, Muslim friends, whoever you're talking to. We're on quarantine. People don't have anything else to do. Send them the link. They'll sign it.
All right.
Shukran.
You know, if there's no personal benefit for me for being on here with Kyrie, other than this one thing, then it's all worth it. And any work that's been done on behalf of the Imam, for me personally, is worth it. To hear you say that you are optimistic about this case, and to, I don't know if it's because of your age or your youthful, you may have not been around long enough to be as cynical as some of us older people may be, but just to hear that you all are hopeful about that, it gives me a charge. I mean, I feel really good about it, and this is the biggest takeaway that I have from this whole discussion.
Alhamdulillah.
So alhamdulillah, I think I feel good about that, and we'll take this away from this particular session.
Amin. Shukran. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Imam Khalid, did you want to wrap things up for us?
No, I sort of like Qari'ah. I think that we covered a lot of ground. I think that if folks who have watched this can get anything from it, if you don't know a lot about the case of Imam Jamil, I would pray that this would be something that would prompt you to learn more about and to energize. Just within the last couple of days, Musab and I have been in a online meeting, a Zoom meeting, where a number of young leaders of Muslim organizations, young folk, want to collaborate to do something on behalf of Imam Jamil. And so this is not a wasted moment in time as far as Imam Jamil goes, and the Muslim response. And you have our commitment that anything that we can do to try to help facilitate that awareness and that action. I mean, just don't be aware, let's do something. But Qari'ah, if you could just give the website, the IGN website again, because I had tried to go on there the other day and something.
Yeah, I just went to it too, and I was like, what just happened? But it's
right.
It's you got to spell out the whole thing. It's Imam Jamil Action Network .weebly, which is WEEBLY.com.
Okay. Thank you.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
And like I said, Brother Qari'ah, we'll stay in contact so we can get all those details and post them to our social media, and we can really spread the word about this. And so with that, inshallah, this is not the last time that we will be talking about Imam Jamil. It's been a long time, but this topic was long overdue. And so I thank Brother Qari'ah for taking the time out to join us. I thank Imam Khalid Griggs for taking the time out to join us. And with that, we conclude. Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdik wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk wal 'asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilus salihat wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.